Antonio Brown is one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. Some say he's the best in the entire NFL. He's had over 1,000 yards in 7 of his last 9 seasons. He had a really great year last year. Last year, he had 15 touchdown catches. He is fantastic. He's a stud. He is 30 years old, but he's at the top of his game. And I will also say his contract costs about $22 million next season. But Antonio Brown wants to be traded. He wants out of Pittsburgh. He met with the ownership of his team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, recently, and the consensus was made after the meeting that it would be best for both sides, for everybody involved, if Antonio Brown was traded away from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, they're going to trade him. The question is, who is going to trade for him? And who should trade for Antonio Brown? I mean, the obvious answer really is theoretically everybody, right? Everybody's team would improve from having Antonio Brown on their roster. But the truth is the answer is far more complicated than that. I've realistically whittled it down to the 2 teams I think are most likely and probably most should trade for Antonio Brown. Then there's also one team I believe should not, and there's another team that I believe sort of is kind of on the fence. We'll talk about that down the road. I want to start with the number one, probably the first team I think should trade for Antonio Brown. It is the New York Jets. The Jets have a ton of cap space. In fact, with $102 million of free salary cap space, they have the second most of any NFL team this offseason. They also have a really young quarterback, Sam Darnold. They have a new head coach. Bringing Antonio Brown into their offense would really, really not only help the development of Sam Darnold, it would really, really benefit the head coach, Adam Gase, and make his offense come alive. It's also a really good fit for Antonio Brown. The New York Jets, New York, the city of New York. I mean, let's be honest. He's a star, and he wants to be a high-profile star. He embraces that. He wants attention. He wants eyeballs. Antonio Brown could live the high life in New York City. It would be fantastic for him. Here's the problem. Here's the one kind of slight hesitation I have with the New York Jets. The New York Jets are in the AFC. So are the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're in the AFC North. The Jets are in the AFC East. That means it's potential that if the Jets made the playoffs, the Steelers and the Jets could play each other in the playoffs. So what's the incentive for the Steelers? Why would the Steelers want to send him to the New York Jets? Obviously, if they put enough players together or a good enough package, then yeah, they'd take the deal. It is also worth noting the Jets have the number 3 overall pick. That's a really good bargaining chip that grabs you a fantastic wide receiver, maybe the best in the NFL, Antonio Brown. But if it's not the Jets, this is the team I feel like is most likely to trade for Antonio Brown. It is the San Francisco 49ers. First of all, they have enough cap space. They have all the cap space in the world. Spottrack.com says they have $76 million of free salary cap room this offseason. That's the 5th most in the NFL. And the way the 49ers designed their quarterback's contract, they signed Jimmy Garoppolo to a massive, massive deal last offseason, and they made it very heavily front-loaded. In year 1, they paid Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they overpaid him year 1, but the reason was, and the benefit was, they could sign into a massive deal and then have space later when they wanted to add other high-profile players. This is the 49ers' opportunity. This is why they signed Jimmy Garoppolo to the deal they did. It was so they could have money later to sign and bring in other big players. The 49ers would benefit greatly from trading for Antonio Brown. I mean, that's an obvious statement, right? Their quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, would love to have that offensive weapon. It would help the entire offense. It would open up the running game. It would open up the passing game. It would help their wide receivers. And you got to also remember, the 49ers have the number 1 tight end in all of football. So having George Kittle, Antonio Brown, and Matt Breida, that's a great... Remember, Jerick McKinnon comes back, the 49ers wide receiver that tore his ACL. All around, the 49ers offense would skyrocket and massively improve. And I think actually with that, a good defensive draft pick, who knows, the 49ers could very likely be contenders if they added Antonio Brown. The Steelers would also benefit from trading Antonio Brown to the 49ers. If the Steelers are indeed going to part ways with Antonio Brown, where else would you rather trade him than all the way across the United States from the East Coast, send him to the West Coast, send him to San Francisco? The 49ers are an NFC team. The Pittsburgh Steelers are an AFC team. That means they would not play Antonio Brown in the playoffs at all. They wouldn't play him until the Super Bowl. If somehow, miraculously, the 49ers and the Steelers got to the Super Bowl, I don't think that would happen. I believe truly that the 49ers have the best chance to trade for Antonio Brown, and I think they should. I think they really should go for it. They have the money. This is why they built their team the way they did. Go get a high-impact player that would heavily elevate your offense. Now, here's a team I think is on the fence, a team that I'm not certain should trade for Antonio Brown, but is in the conversation and is worth noting. So the Green Bay Packers could trade for Antonio Brown. Here's a big problem. They only have $34 million of cap space. And in 2019 season, Antonio Brown's going to take up $22 million of cap space. $22 million of your $34 million to be going to one wide receiver. Not only that, the Packers have to trade something to acquire Antonio Brown. They have to give stuff up. And I'll be honest about the Packers. Their roster's not in a good position to get rid of pieces. They don't have a great draft pick, and they don't have a lot of great players they can part ways with. So they're going to get rid of a lot of good pieces on their team and trade for a wide receiver that costs a lot of money, taking even more salary cap space. I don't know if this is a good... I really think if they're going to acquire a former Steeler, the Packers are better spending their money on Le'Veon Bell, the running back. Again, is the problem with the Packers Aaron Rodgers' ability to throw the ball? No, it's not. No, defense and the running game, those are the two big problems for the Green Bay Packers. Why would the Packers trade away pieces of their defense, trade away a valuable first-round draft pick, a guy that could be a defensive player and contribute to their defense for Antonio Brown, when they could just, if they're going to use that money anyways, sign Le'Veon Bell? He's not free, but you have to give up far less to get Le'Veon Bell. That is what I would do if I was the Packers. With that $34 million of my free salary cap, draft someone on defense with the first-round draft pick and sign Le'Veon Bell, the former running back from the Steelers. Now, the Colts. The Colts are a team that a lot of people are considering for, really, it seems like every free agent and every player out there. This is because the Colts have $107 million of free salary cap space. That is they have the most money to spend this offseason in the NFL. Here's the problem. T.Y. Hilton is their best wide receiver in Indianapolis, and he's basically the knockoff version of Antonio Brown, right? They have the same skill set. They're very similar wide receivers. You don't really want two Antonio Browns. You want a big... I had my buddy, he played wide receiver for Portland State. He came on my podcast recently. He says, if you're going to pair Antonio Brown with another wide receiver, get a 6'5", really tall possession wide receiver alongside Antonio Brown. It's not that he wouldn't work with the Colts, but you already have that need filled. You need to fill a different need. Here's the comparison I would make. Antonio Brown is kind of like Coca-Cola. And T.Y. Hilton is like the knockoff brand of Coca-Cola, like the grocery store, like Signature Select Cola that you get. You already have that need filled. Go get something else. It might not be the best version of it, but it's already good enough, and you have a great wide receiver. Why go trade for Antonio Brown and give up pieces of your really good team? I don't think it would happen. I think the Colts are a match that does not fit well with Antonio Brown. I think the Colts should not trade for Antonio Brown. Again, I repeat, I think the most likely team to sign Antonio Brown, the most likely team to trade for Antonio Brown. I think the most likely team to trade for Antonio Brown is the San Francisco 49ers. My name is Zach Schaumler. This is my podcast, Strong Opinion Sports. It is my favorite thing in the entire world. And I want to ask for your help. I want this show to grow. I want more people to watch and more people to listen to this podcast. My dream is to do this show as my full-time job. I want to own it myself. I want to do it on the internet and have complete control. I don't want to do it for CBS or ESPN. I don't want to work for a big network. I want to own it myself. And if you believe in that dream, please do me a huge favor. Help me grow by telling your friends about this podcast. Share it on Facebook, share a link on Twitter, maybe you screenshot it, put it on Instagram. I don't have a marketing strategy beyond this. This is all I have. You know, a lot of people, one of the most common comments I get on YouTube is, you have great content. We love your stuff. You deserve more viewers. What you should do is you should buy ad spaces on Facebook or Twitter or promote yourself and buy ads. I have no money. I am a broke college kid. I can't buy ad spaces. I don't have money to pay for books. And so my plan, this is my marketing plan. This is my strategy. All I plan to do is put every ounce of effort I have into making the very best podcast I can. I believe if I make a great product that people believe in, that people like, then they will share it with their friends. And so if you agree with that, if you believe in the show, if you like what I do, please do me a huge favor. Tell your friends about it. Help me grow by telling your friends about this podcast.